If you're tired of the standard business and marketing fundamentals, frameworks, and funnels, you need a little mischief. Get ready to turn up the volume on the CEO Mischief Maker podcast, where you access conversations with seasoned business owners who have smashed through mindset barriers, innovated the standard boring business and marketing playbooks, and executed future-paced strategies with bleeding-edge tools and tactics to micro-fail their way into massive success and growth. We are Mindset Impact Strategic Catalysts helping innovative entrepreneurs focus. We are CEO Mischief Makers. Ready to make a little mischief? All right, CEO Mischief Makers, welcome back to the conversation and my incredible guest, Mr. Vinnie Fisher. And if you haven't listened to Monday's episode about mindset, it is a requirement. I'm just going to say it, just flat out. You got to go do that because it's going to set us up for what we're going to talk about next. So, Vinnie, tell me a little bit. You mentioned fully accountable in our last chat. Tell me a little bit about how the standard practices you are helping innovate with that company. How did you actually decide, or what did you do to take a standard financial practice and innovate it to create this new system you've got?
Well, thanks, Mary, for all your kind words about me and having me on the show, first off. Secondly, the accounting industry was ripe, or continues to even be ripe for disruption because it's built on some very old practices. And so when I looked under the hood and found the problem I had, we had most of our customers were in our health company were being acquired digitally, either through, paid media, through ad placement. And we had a lot of transactions coming through the door. Well, old accounting was really premised on something that at a minimum was 45 days old, if not older. And so you basically bled to death by the time you got anything you could really work with. So I wanted to go find something more real time that I can get my hands on. I found out the market didn't have it. And so I was not okay with that. So I wanted that to change for us first. And so I went out and built our own version of technology, which was very manual at first, to be able to download daily transactions, to be able to run a P&L, a profit and loss statement every day. And so over time, what we've done is built our own software. We're tech enabled by playing nice with, at the time, software that didn't even exist, now has come along, but we're a technology firm that happens to do accounting. And so what we do is we take in thousands and thousands and thousands of transactions every day into our server database, and we're able to reconcile them real time so that we can actually know a heartbeat of a business at any given pulse of any given day.
Wow. I get the accounting practice. I get the accounting business. My husband is a tax accountant, so I hear you. If you were, so tell me about the marriage between the technology company and the accounting systems that you have implemented in your technology company. How did that marriage happen? You said you started as an manual process, which of course everything has to start there. Yep. You have to actually get your hands dirty and do the thing before you can automate it, right? So how did that marriage happen, and when? Could it have happened 5 years ago? Did you have to wait until you were able to do this? Tell me more.
So my vision of what we started out late 14, open to the world in 2015, my vision was today's vision. Actually, I wanted to be able to offer interactive P&L real time. The problem was API, fancy terms for connecting to banks to get automatic downloads and get by the key fob or the pass or the code. Some of that stuff didn't even exist. So the idea of automating, like how to make payables work or how to download into your little fancy ledger, none of that stuff existed. So we had to start doing a lot of that very manually, and started early on. I made some gigundo mistakes in business. I listened to the world that I thought that we should automate for the end customer, make fancy dashboards, make it Not one of our clients wanted to be able to log in to our software. So strike one was listening to the world. And what I did is I changed. Instead of being focused on the end customer for our automation, what I started doing is making it an internal piece. And I built our enterprise software so that we could reconcile thousands of transactions more efficiently, which freed up our time to do analysis, observation, and the things that a consumer actually really wanted from us. So over time, we've built our own basically CRM that plays nice with general ledger software like QuickBooks. It builds out its own data files. It's predictive. It actually goes out to the market and benchmarks, and it actually tells on itself on the pieces it's missing. And so we just keep getting smarter at that every day. But the key there was we made it an internal issue, not an end user customer, because me, the business owner, I don't want to be better at accounting. I just want to know I can rely on more readily available information. So when that bulb switched, that light bulb went on, and I made it more internal and less kind of reports for the consumer, is really when everything started to really go and take off in a mighty way.
Wow. And so did you want to impact other people just like you, or did you go out into your customer base or your prospect base and ask questions and verify if they wanted that as well? I know you mentioned about listening to the world, and I know that's the world can tell us to go all kinds of different directions and unfortunately off a cliff if we don't watch out. But did you do that? Did you just build for yourself and then hope other people wanted it just like you, or did you actually go out and talk to people?
So interestingly, a little bit of there, like I did first solve a problem for myself. By the way, I didn't set out to open Fully Accountable. I set out to solve a problem in my accounting and finance department of my almost $50 million health company. I was running razor thin margins, and all of it was back office issues, not product issues. It was not our offer or our products. It was all of our back office administration, paying too much for customers, not managing inventory correctly, like all back office items. So when we fixed that and took our 8% profit margin to 22%, like obviously we were pretty excited, right? Well, in the process of selling that business, like friends who were close friends were like, that's pretty awesome. Can you do that for us? I didn't even ask. They came to us. Wow. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm a product guy, good copywriter and marketer, and I'm going to open an accounting firm. So I had this awful resistance to being known as an accountant because I didn't set out to own an accounting firm. I was setting out to solve how to reconcile high transactions because of an old industry just basically doing a tax return. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, here I am in the early 15 and I own an accounting firm. And there is where basically the journey of it started. I kind of got pulled into it, and it's like that missional stuff you hear people talk about. I'm like, crap, there's a real problem. We can solve the problem. I can make a bunch of money other ways. Now I have to go do the hard thing of building and scaling a service company, which I had already tried that in a law firm, and it was awful. And here I go again doing that. And what a principle I grabbed from our mindset thing that you write people should listen to is I built this time like making sure that my shadow didn't trap me into being one of the production workers. And I really made that a core principle in this organization. So here we are with over 100 people on the team and hundreds of clients and really winning some tech battles. But I never set out to grow this. Kind of saw an opportunity to fill a big need of a value proposition. And it's probably one of the probably the hardest thing we've ever built. And I'm so super happy for our team.
But that's those are, I think, the most fulfilling adventures we can take. The ones that we're called to, but we resist.
Yeah.
And right. And we're like, not me. That's not me. And we don't identify with it. We resist it because it's not part of our identity. And through the process of actually taking on that task and heeding the call and actually saying yes and picking up the spear or however you want to, whatever metaphor you want to use.
That's right.
We grow into it and we allow ourselves to.
It took me 3
embrace
years to get comfortable with the idea of owning an accounting firm. It probably took me another year of like friend therapy to even like say it out loud. Like I still was trapped in being a really good a 3-time 8-figure business owner, marketer, sales, kind of all that shtick, and like an internet expert suddenly owns an accounting firm. And so for so long, I battled. Your original question was, how long did that tech kind of accounting first piece? We were tech first. So what I say to people today is we're a technology and marketing firm that happens to do accounting.
But that's, this is such a fascinating topic for me, because like I said in our last conversation, there is a personality type, if you will, this futuristic person that actually is the visionary. And for you to be able to have friends who came to you and to go from an 8% margin to a 22, you said?
Yep.
I mean, and all of that was because all of those changes were within your control. Right?
Right.
I mean, product manufacturing, marketing, customer base, all these things, they're not completely in your control. You don't know exactly what's going to happen when you try and do that.
When I
but
changed,
back office,
when I found out how much I could pay to acquire a customer and live within a range, I wrote a book called False Profits. It's not the top line that pays you, and our guests can all have that for free. But I came up with this internal thing in my brain, solving for X. How much money did I really have left after baking in a profit could I use to spend to acquire the customer? And that equation of solving for X became our mantra. And that really started changing how we operated the business. No longer just serving the false god of gross revenue, but actually appreciate what a margin should look like in our type of business. And how do I be the key defender of that? It changed everything.
The reason I'm so interested in this is I was just talking to someone yesterday who does great work for local businesses, and he's in the home improvement space. So he's a marketer helping home improvement companies, roofers, those kinds of things, solar, insulation, those kinds of things. And he has a quiz or a survey that he uses to take his ads and bring the people who respond to his ads to this survey.
Yeah.
And he had never looked at his survey data. How many people started the survey, where they dropped off in whatever questions he had, and how many people ended. What was the actual completion rate? He'd never looked at that. All he's looked at is the front and the back. I'm like, dude, this is the messy middle. You have to look at this. This is where you're losing tons and tons of people you could actually. So that's exactly what you're talking about. These are back office things that if we don't monitor them and iterate them, this is the innovation to me.
One of the things, the stats that really opened my eyes throughout this journey is, 7% is the number of companies in America that actually do $1 million of annualized revenue. And so already I'd say that what solopreneurs need to hear is, I do believe from $0 to $1 million, your biggest problem is an offer that converts to build up a tribe of clients. I definitely think, but here's what happens. When I get to the $1 million, I have so many new habits to change because my business process orientation and depth of growth is no longer about that offer. It's about all the other things when you grow above $1 million. And almost everybody gets trapped staying in that pre-$1 million attitude. I was guilty of it, even at $40+ million of our company. And so I'm so thankful to have broken through that. I wasn't ready to be the kind of leader I am now back then. And those life lessons, now I'm on shows like this and your amazing show to help people. Maybe that light bulb can go on a little earlier for them.
Oh my gosh, yes. And wouldn't you agree that what we talked about on Monday, that whole mindset shift, that changes at each level. So what happens is, you have a mindset shift, but all that does is open up the door to a new room. And in that room, there are 4 walls, and you have to go through mindset shifts to open to actually have the next door appear. And then you actually have to have the shift, the understanding that you just went through, that you just talked about, that each stage, I usually work with people in the low to mid 6 figures. Right? That's usually where the solopreneur has to now become a CEO, right? Or an owner of their business.
Probably not even a CEO, but at least a very good professional at what they're doing.
Yep. Yes. Yeah. And then the next door presents itself. but it won't open until you've made the changes, like you said, the behavioral changes to be able to open that door and step through to the next phase. Isn't it amazing? This is not a static thing. People think, I always used to think that it was just going to be that next thing that was just going to be the catapult to just be done with all the blah, blah.
Yeah, and I had learned in a product and tech company that getting to 1 million was a big deal. I already had learned that lesson. But then in that world, going from 1 million to 10 million was its own lesson. And then 10 to 25 was its own lesson. Well, in a service company, the $1 million number is true, but it starts a little earlier for some service organizations. As soon as $500,000, you start getting beyond parts of your shadow where you got to add people, and at $1 million, you got to start changing. But as interesting as $3 million, things happen in service companies, and then $5 million, like the complexities are the same. They just change the zeros and the commas because of what, when your ROI is on labor, you have more humans, so it gets a little more complicated a little faster. When your ROI is on maybe a product or an inventory, you probably have a little less personnel and got a little longer runway. So the dynamic of the business you run changes. We have overhauls of our company depending on our growth. We're on the edge of going through another one of those. And I can see it about to happen, and my job is to speak into that. And yeah, that's a very true thing you're talking about.
And that's where we have to innovate at every stage.
Right.
It really is. And especially you get to see both sides of it. You get to see the product side and you get to see the service side and
I read a
the
really
technology.
great book on this, Mary. Like I would encourage people to read, called Competitive Advantage by Michael Porter. And it's an old book. It's a very thick read. But if you're in any version of growth, you need to go back and answer the category of which phase. This is like an innovation thing. Like, what is my competitive advantage? Do I go mass market? Do I have more of a, of a network, of a group? Am I first to market, or do I have a niche offering? You got to know these things about yourself in order to understand what your competitive advantage is, because his thing is you can't have all three. If you have a niche offering and you're going to mass, then you're shopping too low of a price and you actually can't serve your niche. If you stand for expertise in something and you're first to market and you are trying to be lowest price, the mismatch is there. You're kind of just undermining your competitive advantage. And so one of the things innovators do is to always make sure you're looking at your competitive advantage. Do you even know what it is? And so as I continue to improve our technology, my job is to dig a moat around our competitive advantage. And if I can't dig one, then I need to ask some pretty hard questions.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I saw this first because I started I get you when you say that the technology didn't exist and you had to build these things. I get it, because I started the first novelty maternity store online in 2003. Wow. Okay. So this is before Shopify's, before Stripe. This is before I had to, luckily I was a technical recruiter. I was a technical headhunter before this. So I just went and asked all my techie guys that I'd gotten jobs for, how do I do this? And how do I do that? And where do I find this? And they were so kind and helped me out. But I was completely naive, had no clue. It was just accidental. Well, I'm going to take a little bit of credit because I had an amazing passion, but the process itself, I just stumbled through, and I got tied to the identity. My identity got tied to the success or failure of my business. And in mindset, that's a big one to overcome. You got to let go of that before you can really do anything else. And then since then,
funny, my first book, we don't really talk about much. It's called The Best Investment, A Better You. That whole book is a cleansing of when I broke the hosting company. My value proposition, the way I looked at myself was completely broken. It was like finding my way back to value, because I locked up all my identity in being a successful business guy. And so when I take the hit, my cheerleader, Debbie, who's my wife, sees me skin my knee majorly to the world, I was in a massive funk. Massive. And thank the Lord I got pulled out of that. I'm now look back at it. I needed to go through that. But boy, at the time, you don't see that.
Oh, you don't. And it took me many years. I didn't have anybody to pull me out. This was the 2008 recession hit, and
Yeah.
I was in retail, right? So it just by 2011, I was looking around at this, smoldering mess, going, "What in the world is happening?" And I had to try and pick myself up. It was really a long road, and I'll say that I probably didn't detach my identity from my business self or whatever I was going to do for business until probably 2016. So easily for a minimum of 5 years, I was in that funk and trying to figure out what I was going to do and how it was going to work. Until then, when that identity shift happened, then I could actually have fresh eyes. I mean, really, it felt like, and it was my accountant who finally got me to do that. He asked me, "Why are you hanging on to this dying business?" And of course, I'm bawling, right? Bawling my eyes out. "If it fails, I fail." And he's like, "You are not your business."
It's good advice.
So I gave him a sloppy wet kiss because he also happens to be my husband. And like, all right, what are we going to do now? So, that kind of innovation can be found in many different ways, but never many different places. But oh my gosh, you just dropped some incredible gold that everyone listening needs to stop and pick it up. Because these things that we're talking about, that we talked about Monday and we talked about today, if you have not necessarily a shortcut, because those don't exist, but a faster way to go through these changes yourself. And I'm telling you, if you choose to not take some of these lessons and use them, it'll just take longer. And I'm here to tell you why. You have one life. Just dive in, do it, and really trust it works. Because look at what you just heard Vinnie talk about. Trust it works. Wow. All right. So innovation. Anything else you want to share, or impact? Right. So I'm sure you were pretty excited when the people who came to you and said, "Hey, can you help me too?" I bet they were pretty excited when their profit margins went up. And how did that make you feel, in the sense of all the hard work that you had to do to create Fully Accountable and allow them to use it and have that kind of impact on their businesses as well?
Yeah, I'm a big thinker, and I've always, once I knew there was something beyond just for us, I immediately thought about the hundreds and thousands of companies we were going to be serving. Our mission became, how do we help 10,000 companies double their profit margin? And, we're at hundreds. I don't know where I have a general idea, because, it's funny, an entrepreneur always has more than one company. So I think we're like 600 or 700 companies, but so somewhere in between there. And, when we start every year, we have a company retreat. And so I'll have my team pull together, like, how many people work at those companies and how much our footprint covers and how many people we're helping to bring their product or market to the marketplace. And it's a fun number because we're helping a lot of people. And so, yeah, we're having fun. Super hard when you ROI on labor and the world needs a timeout, but we're doing pretty good and we're getting through all that.
Okay, hold on. If your mindset was shifted, you were inspired to innovate, and you were spurred into action, don't just move on with your day. Focus, my friend, and take a few minutes to visit CEOmischiefmaker.com to learn more about the value that was shared with you today. Please act now and create some CEO mischief of your own.